What's the good word, y'all? DKB here, and every win that we get, we're gaining more bandwagon fans, and I think it's safe to say members of the media as a whole. I'm talking analysts, broadcasters, beat writers, etc. They've been the slowest group to really catch on to the fact that the product that the New York Jets have been putting out on the field is not the same one that we've seen and been accustomed to for the last, 10 to 13 years. And Charles Davis was one of these recent members that spoke out. Charles Davis, being one of the NFL broadcasters on the CBS team, he's one of the, I guess you can call him second tier broadcasting members of the B team for CBS, anyways. But it stuck out to me so much more because for the fact that I mentioned the media has been slow to catch on. And so with this win over Buffalo kind of being the icing on the cake, if you will, to kind of push a few not bandwagon, but push a few people teeter-tottering on the edge over to our side. And this is being the case. So Charles Davis has some interesting things to mention just in terms of what he thinks about the roster and certain things as a whole. And then some of the performances we put together, which again, this Bills one was the one that really did it for a lot of these people out here that's been hesitating and coming up with the excuses that we're facing backup quarterbacks. And we've had, injury luck with some of the opponents we're facing and various things of that nature. So, yeah, as far as Charles Davis's comments go, I think the biggest one is that he definitely mentions these aren't the same old Jets that we're looking to. He pretty much calls out the Buffalo game in terms of our defense being something that we can see these kind of performances. This is something that will occur frequently. Home games, away games, it doesn't matter. The way that we've been able to piece that side of the roster together and the performances that we're seeing allows us to be dominant in any fashion. I mean, in the event that the New York Jets can play with the lead in any of these games, I'd say it's hard pressed to think that any of these teams are going to be able to battle themselves out of a hole extremely easy. So if the offense ever gets anywhere close to the level that we're saying the defense play, the New York Jets would have to be considered a Super Bowl team. And so we've seen the defensive call outs. He loves everything with the defensive line rotation. I mean, you have multiple guys that can literally be at least above average or elite if you want to consider just specifically pressures and being able to hurry the quarterback and collapse the pocket. There are honorable mentions with Jermaine Johnson and having Vinny Curry's presence around for, if you want to switch things up. Obviously, Quentin Williams, who we said feels he's having a Pro Bowl season. You talk about Sheldon Rankins, who looks like he probably would have been having his career best numbers. JFM, who's always a monster on the outside. Bryce Huff is kind of that secret, sauce in the ingredient that just perks everything else up. So sometimes goes unknown until, you actually get into the meat and potatoes of everything. But it's crazy how deep our defensive line is and the impact that we're seeing everybody have. And I was just talking with somebody about this today, the fact that we don't hear anything negative about the defensive line rotation anymore, especially in the center of the dominance across the board from everybody contributing. So it's funny how winning cures everything. But then you get to the linebacker core. We have CJ Mosley's leadership. We refer to Kwan, who also has that same kind of presence and force. He's able to go out there and pop guys. We see the highlights and kind of those energetic plays that happen from him. Quincy Williams is just a missile every time, and that's the description that you'll get 9 times out of 10 with them. And then we take a look at the cornerback group, which is obviously kind of the one, the Batman and the Robin of this NFL team. I mean, either both defensive line and cornerbacks are dominating, or it's one or the other, but it's not far behind. And their synergy together just makes the defense work perfectly great. And then we have the turnaround that happened with LaMarcus Joyner and Jordan Whitehead, where we were talking about Jordan Whitehead looking like one of our worst signings earlier on. LaMarcus Joyner, after hearing about how he comes out of retirement to play for Robert Saleh, 2 rough weeks. He needs to absolutely go. We need to replace him. Let's up Will Parks. Let's find a replacement, etc. And so it's been huge turnarounds. Lots of praise for the coaching staff. Charles Davis loved the game plan that was developed for Zach Wilson to ensure he didn't have a bunch of issues in terms of ball security and throwing a bunch of interceptions, as well as just giving him a bunch of easier reads in order to kind of get himself going. And so we're seeing a solid but unspectacular performance from Zach Wilson, but with a lot of room to still grow into a much higher role for himself. And then Nate Herbig was also one. I agree with this one wholeheartedly. The fact that he's been one of the best unsung heroes on this offensive line. I mean, since he was inserted into the lineup, and then we were able to move Elijah Vera Tucker into tackle spots in order to provide our best 5 offensive linemen. He's jumped in and he hasn't been a detriment to this offensive line whatsoever. And it's even more so kudos to him as well as John Benton, to be honest, because there's been a lot of turnover. I mean, Dwayne Brown was out, George Fant was out. We lose Mekhi Becton, Max Mitchell goes down. We got to bring in Rimmers. We got to bring in Cedric. We're playing, I think at one point we're playing a still somewhat injured Connor McDermott with Elijah Vera Tucker on one end. Laken Tomlinson wasn't doing so great. He's starting to come on a little bit more. Connor McGovern's your most consistent offensive line weapon, and then you lose Elijah Vera Tucker, and then you have to plug in more pieces. So spectacular job by Nate Herbig. He's been one of our best run blocking offensive linemen, and you see it on tape, especially in like those fourth quarters, and more specifically, even so recently with the Bills game. You've seen him out there getting after people, and they're not utilizing him as much in pulling scenarios. They're just letting him go out there and kind of maul his man in front of him. So it's not only great to see on tape, but I'm sure it's fun for Nate Herbig as well. But I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. The defense is leading our way, and I think that's a huge thing. We'll see guys like Charles Davis and more people continue to talk about. We're talking about outscoring our opponents at this point in the fourth quarter, 84 points to 26. I mean, you wouldn't think that that would be a score for any quarter for the New York Jets, but it lets you know just how dominant we've been in either closing the gap in fourth quarters or completely shutting people down and taking advantage. So I love to see it. I think that's reflected in some of the rankings that people put more stock in, right? Recently, we cracked the top 10 in the DVOA rankings. I think we settled just in at number 9. And then we end up going up to number 9 at NFL.com's power rankings for, those that like to see some of those. And we've gone anywhere from number 14 to the 14th best team with a lot of, skepticism in between. I've seen like the 49ers above us, for example. So it is very, very interesting, hearing Charles Davis say a lot of these things, though, again, it's kind of music to my ears. It proves Robert Saleh has definitely done one of the best coaching jobs, I would want to say in history, but just knowing all of the things that came with New York and the baggage, and seeing such a quick turnaround in terms of what's been done to this roster and what can still be done. I mean, I don't want to say we can win out by any means, but I think saying that we can still win at least another 5 to 6 games in our remaining schedule is not completely off the table with how certain teams have panned out and the effectiveness that our team has actually proven on our side. So, in any event, I would be very curious to know what are your guys' thoughts. I think we all definitely agree we are not the same old Jets. But what are one of the biggest things you would potentially like to see fixed or improved upon when we come out of this bye week? And I look forward to the comments. I appreciate the support as always, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.